Hi guys, I hope you had a great weekend with Halloween and everything. Monday today, so we're gonna do another video. We're gonna cover chapter 12 today, media. But before we even do that, I'm gonna talk a little bit about a couple of things. So advising is over, right? Um, Make sure you know the dates in your opinion and what you want to do and what you need to do this week. If you still need help from your advisor, please reach out. Okay. I have my notes right here concerning feedback. Um, Before I even go to feedback, I want to say that I moved the office hours from tomorrow to Wednesday, same time, 8. So if you need something, you can always visit with me during office hours from 8 to 12:30 on Wednesday this week. Excuse me. And I'm also having a synchronous meeting. So there's another opportunity for you to talk with me specifically for this class, this course, and also get some extra credit. It's always good to get extra credit, right? I'm going to show that on Moodle as well. That's for Thursday. And if I'm not wrong, the time is 10 in the morning. So it's going to be for 45 minutes. We don't have to use all 45 minutes. And that will be the third synchronous meeting. I'm going to have 5, I think. One will be right before we leave for Thanksgiving, and then the last one will be during finals week. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and go to Moodle. All right, so you can see here what's up, right? Um, I'm I'm going live today, and I'm making this a little bit later because there's a lot of work concerning Greater New York ACSM chapter meeting, which is on the 14th of November, but today is the deadline to submit research. So it's been a crazy weekend for me, and I apologize if I look a little bit tired, but it's been hectic. Well, we'll be good. We'll do it. All right. So for feedback, right? Here we are. So for LO11, the mean score was 98%. So I have nothing else to say other than congratulations. I'm very proud of you. LP17 and LP18, I have already sent individual feedback. I want to make sure again, one more time, that you follow the instructions. Don't do your own thing. Everything is in the syllabus. And also, do not forget to connect whatever you're presenting with the material of the chapter, because those case studies are actually part of that chapter. Okay. Now, for PDO 15 and PDO 16, my main issue, which I had with, I think, both of those presentations is do not forget to have like an intro slide, like slide number 2, which you will use to show us what you are going to present, right? And then you have a take-home slide or conclusions slide, which connects back to the introduction and everything that you did. So just bring it back and kill it, okay? That's all I have from this. For next week, as I said, I'm covering media today. I don't think it's going to be a long presentation. It's pretty straightforward. We have LO12 for use, right? That's wrong. I need to fix that, and I will as soon as I finish this presentation. That's interesting. Okay. And let me move this a little bit. Okay. And then we have LO19, LO20, PDO17, PDO18, plus this one. So as I said, we have our third synchronous meeting on Thursday at 10. um, and we will have 45 minutes to use if we need to. Okay, so don't forget that, and hopefully I won't forget to fix log 12. All right, so I'm gonna stop sharing my screen, and I'm gonna go ahead and share the PowerPoint slide if I find it. Let's see. Okay, sharing my screen, PowerPoint. Okay, let's see if this is working. Excellent. And let me move this a little bit. This one. All right. So what we're covering today is media, and it's a huge player in our industry, as you understand. Okay. Now it's working, which is pretty good. Okay. So today we are gonna talk about media. I'm gonna bring it back a little bit and talk about even chapters 1 to 4, which were very introductory and talked about the players of sports industry, right? There's gonna be a graph that we're gonna spend a lot of time, and I want you to pay attention to that figure actually. And yeah, I don't think it's gonna be a very long presentation. So we will examine some key features, as you can see in this slide, of the relationship between sport and the media, of course, with reference to management. We will examine some ways in which sport and the media interact, depending on the three-sector model of sport, which is, again, that's why I said we're going to go back and talk about chapters 1 to 4. Also, the commercial foundations of sports media relationship, and more specifically, we're going to talk about the sale of broadcast rights. That's huge, as you understand, and also the ways in which governments regulate the sport media relationship. Okay, we're going to finish it up with a brief acknowledgement of the role of you, the future sport media manager in the professional sport industry. Okay, so when we talk about media, we usually, media is usually considered to provide those three broad functions: information, education, and entertainment. In particular, though, in terms of the sports media relationship, um, the the last one, entertainment, has become a very big player and something that is very, very valuable in that relationship. Okay, especially if we think about consumers and professional sport. Now, in general, when we talk about media um, and understanding the management of the sport media relationship, actually, it is important to keep in mind that the word media has a diverse set of meanings. And as you can see, it can be a TV channel or any kind of platform or any kind of application that we use. It can be Twitter, it can be ESPN, it can be Sports Illustrated magazine, it can be Gazzetta dello Sport, which is a newspaper for sports in Italy, and it's huge, right? So it can have a lot of meanings, but in general, those are the three functions. And for us, it is very crucial to specifically understand the entertainment function. Okay. All right. So let's talk about this relationship, the sport media relationship. Now, I hope you remember when we talked about chapter one. Chapter one was very introductory, and we talked about the three main players: public sector, non-profit sector, and then profit sector, or we call it commercial sector, or we call it professional sector. Public sector was chapter two, non-profit sector was chapter three, and commercial sector was chapter four. It is important to acknowledge that all three sectors of sport need the media, right? In order, of course, to survive, but also prosper. And we also need to understand that each sector may need the media or may use the media in a different way because they have relationships that are established for different purposes. Right? Let's start with the public sector or the state. Let's say the state wishes to make its citizen aware of some kind of regulation of a particular sporting activity in order to make it safer for children, right? It is it is hard for the state to reach all citizens at once and make that known. So the state will rely on the media to act as the medium, right? The intermediary between them and the citizens. Does that make sense? All right. So there are other examples. They may have regulation. They may talk about anti-doping. They may talk about gambling. They may talk about taxes. All these things that regulate that relationship, and they're trying to make it known by using the media. Let's talk about the non-profit sector. Remember when we talk about non-profit, doesn't mean they don't make profit. It means that they take the profit and reinvest it back, right? So we have huge non-profit companies, organizations, and smaller ones. One of the biggest ones is IOC, the International Olympic Committee, which receives approximately 3 billion US dollars every 4 years from the media in order for them to broadcast the summer, but also the winter Olympics. Okay, so now here we see a different kind of relationship between that sector and media. And then we have the commercial sector or the professional sector. So those organizations, think about your, first of all, like, for example, your favorite NFL team, right? Those kind of organizations have an intimate relationship with the media to the point that the financial viability of large media organizations and professional sport organizations or leagues or teams are very closely linked. So, and specifically about the professional sector, don't forget that there is a bidirectional relationship. What I mean by that is at the same time, media organizations are seeking to cover professional sport organizations in order to increase their audience, right? Which has necessitated sport organizations to employ staff in a variety of media, public relations, and communication management roles. So for us, in order to understand this relationship, we have to understand the differences in those relationships between media and each different sector. Okay, that's what I want you to remember from this slide. All right, so here we're gonna go and spend some time in that graph that I talked to you about because we're gonna talk about the way in which commercial dimensions of the sport media relationship operate. And that can be divided into 5 interrelated components. All these components communicate with each other. And those components are presented in figure 12.1. Before I even start explaining this figure, I want to say that the exposure, the arrow that you see all the way at the bottom down here, see right here, this should have been dashed, but it isn't. So exposure is this. This is exposure, this is money, and this one is content. Okay? I just want to point that out. This is wrong. Okay. So as I said, we have 5 players. Which are those 5 players? The consumers, which are all the way at the outer circle, right? And then we have the broadcaster, the advertiser, the other media. We're going to explain a little bit what other media is. And of course, the sport organization right in the middle. Okay, so what do we have here? Let's start with the broadcaster and the sport organization. Okay, so the broadcaster wants to broadcast, but they need the content. So they go to the sport organization, let's say your favorite NFL team, they give them money, right? They give them money right here, and they get the content. So they are exclusive distributors of that content, right? Now, what do they do with that content now? Well, what they're going to do is they're trying to make money because they made money, right? So how are they going to make money? So while they're broadcasting that content, right, the advertiser comes here, right, and the advertiser gives them money in order to get what? Exposure, which through whatever, let's say an NFL game, that exposure, let's say they are trying to advertise razors, I don't know, something, right? Those razors that are getting advertised during the game, right? That exposure will reach the consumers. Okay, and of course, in order to do that, in order to use that content that they bought from this organization, they give them money. Now, the broadcaster, of course, they can directly connect with the consumers. How? Let's say the consumer wants to see the content, let's say in UFC fight, right? It's pay-per-view, they pay the money, right? They pay the money, and they're allowed to watch the content. So far, so good. So right now, we have covered this relationship, and this relationship. Let's talk about other media. Other media, they're not the ones that bought the exclusive content, right? Let's say there's a newspaper or somebody's watching the content and writes about it, right, online, and you go on ESPN online and you can read it play by play, or you can just read my opinion about how that player performed, or that coach performed, or that team performed, or even the ref performed, right? So I get the content or some part of the content indirectly, okay? And since I have the content, I give it to the consumers, whatever content I create, and I get some money, okay? Also, the advertiser does the same thing over here. So they're using me and they're advertising something that reaches the consumer, and for that, they give me money, okay? So that's another way for this media to get content, but they don't give these people money. You see it? Because they're not exclusive distributors. The broadcaster is exclusive distributor. This is getting the content free indirectly. Okay? Now, the sport organization can have a direct relationship with an advertiser. So you go to Gillette Stadium to watch the Patriots NFL game, and as you're sitting down, you see an ad on the screens, right? For that to happen, the advertiser, right, gets the exposure that they want through the sport organization, the Patriots, right? Boom. But they have to give Patriots money. And the last thing here, the last relationship, we said we have 5 players and they're all interrelated, right? The sport organization can directly communicate or have a relationship with the consumers, and they give them content, right? Like, let's say they give them access to something and they get money. For example, on the collegiate level, Texas University from Austin, right? They have the Longhorn Network, which the actual consumer can pay money and have access to their practices, and they can watch live on their screen the practices of their favorite collegiate football team. So this is a very important figure that I want you to remember. There are 5 players and they're all connected. There are things that are moving around, and that's content, money, and exposure. Okay, make sure you understand that, please. All right, let's move along. Let's talk a little bit about, some of you had case studies, um, LPs and PDOs that had to do with this. So, excuse me, that's a very interesting topic, right? Let's talk about broadcast rights. So the importance of sport is such that major national and international broadcasters almost always bid for the rights to high profile sports. Okay, the English Premier League, Serie A, when we're talking about football or soccer, um, the Olympics, the Super Bowl, just one game, right? And other events that are important. So there are a lot of people who are interested, so they bid, right? Now, sport event and games are an ephemeral product. They're perishable goods, which means that right now they have value, tomorrow they have no value. What I'm trying to say is that a game, for example, match, is live. And when it is live, the value is really, really high. Once it's over, the value drops dramatically, right? So that's a big difference about the product of this specific industry. So it's perishable and ephemeral because it's live. Also, it's great in a sense, and it's kind of different in a sense of other products because it's unpredictable. You know the players, you know the coaches, you know the main variables that are going to be included in that product, but still it can be unpredictable, right? And that, of course, increases the interest, which increases the value. The sport exposure part has to do with how many games we can watch, where we can watch them, which platforms, and so on and so on and so forth. The value, though, in general of sport broadcast rights is also increased by the fact that it is very difficult for you and I, as the consumer, to substitute that product with something else. So if you want to watch football, you want to watch football. If there's baseball on TV, maybe you're not interested at all. Or if you want to watch even more, you want to watch your favorite team playing football, and your favorite team is not playing tonight, or nobody's showing that game, then you're not going to watch anything at all, right? That's not the case. Let's say with a film, right? You can find another horror film or another action movie, or so that's very interesting when we talk about sports and media. Now, the fact that sport is viewed as a key driver of direct and indirect revenues for media organizations has a significant impact on the size of broadcast rights, the competition to secure them, the ability of sport organizations to maximize revenue through sponsorship, and, excuse me, of course, the service that media organizations demand from their sport partners. Okay? Let's talk a little bit about the sport media relationship and more specifically about who's regulating it and why uh, it should be regulated or not. So the interdependence of the sport and media industries, and more particularly the commercial relationship between sport and television, has presented a series of challenges for governments all over the world. The key thing here is that the consumer should have access to some events, right? Everybody should be able to watch the Olympics, for example, right? Or some kind of your national team playing or trying to qualifying for the World Cup. So what the government is trying to do, the state, is to create an anti-competitive behavior, meaning not only one media outlet will own most of the events, or only a limited amount of games will be televised, um, or the price is that expensive that then the consumers cannot actually, not a lot of consumer can actually buy that content, because you see that there is a shift from the typical channels to go to subscription TV, and that's not something the government likes, because that affects the first thing we talked about on this slide, the access, the level of access of consumers to all these key events. So the government has been intervening, and the government intervention has had a significant impact already. Um, the industry, the media industry's ever-changing complexity and diversity is such that governments often find it difficult to apply all these rules and regulations, um, or at least as efficiently as they would like to. Um, Again, the main goal is preventing the migration of premium sport from network to cable. Okay, and that's what I want you to remember from this. All right. As we're going towards the end of this slideshow in this chapter, let's talk a little bit about the role of the sport media manager. And that's something that you may be doing later on in your career, right? So I'll start with a story. We're 1919, and the football coach of Notre Dame decides that he does not like the way his team is portrayed in the news that are being reported through the newspaper that have to do with his team. So he decides to hire somebody because he's highly dissatisfied. So he decides to hire somebody who will be pretty much like the football program hired somebody and made them a sports writer. Or back then they call him the press agent. So that guy, his last name was Ward, Archie Ward was his name, is considered the first sport media manager, and his goal was to report whatever the coach wanted, or the whatever the in whatever way the coach wanted it to be reported. So he was the very first practitioner that had to do with public relations and sport. So after this story, let's talk a little bit about today and what you would face if you wanted to follow that career. So, we have the rise of the internet, the rise of social media, of course, Twitter, and at the same time, the sport organizations have realized that they have the desire to take a more strategic approach, I would say, to setting and shaping the news that have to do with their team, their organization, and how they're being reported through media. As a result, the role of the sport media manager is becoming increasingly complex and important, of course, as sport organizations seek to protect their image, brand, and of course their staffs. So we're living in an environment that is highly complex, and at the same time we are trying to control it, which is pretty much impossible. But that's what the sport media manager does or tries to do. It's not an easy job at all. You have to be on top of everything and ready to answer any questions, know what is going on, notify the right people, and then communicate what the team, the organization would like to communicate at the right time and using the right way. So not easy at all. And these are the take-home points for today. So media organizations, let me move this. There we go. All right. Media organizations and consumers are interested in professional sport in particular because of its entertainment value. Excuse me. There is a strong sport media relationship. There are five interrelated components that describe the way in which the commercial dimensions of the relationship operate. The importance of sport is such that major national and international broadcasters almost always bid for the high-profile sports. The interdependence of sport and media industries has presented a series of challenges for governments all around the world, and the role of sport media manager is growing. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Don't forget that I moved the office hours on Wednesday, and we'll have a synchronous meeting on Thursday at 10. I'm going to go ahead and fix LO12 right now before I forget. In the meantime, guys, live intentionally, not habitually. Bye-bye.